Welcome, everybody. Sven Hosford here with another edition of the Freedom from Mold podcast. And when we start talking about what we're talking about, you're going to wonder what this has to do with mold, but bear with me. We'll get there and it'll be very interesting, I promise. We are here in front of the Harmonic Egg, which is in the Strip District of Pittsburgh. There's several of them around the country. We'll talk about that. And we're here with Wyatt Melius, who's a part of the management team here, and he is a sound practitioner and a spiritual counselor. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
I'm really looking forward to this conversation. I've actually done a 10 series here for the mold protocol, so that's kind of what has led to this whole conversation. So before we get into all of that and what the egg is about, tell us a little bit about your background and the training you've had and what exactly a sound practitioner is.
Sure. So, I started this journey back in 2012, and I was a pretty large guy. I'd lost a lot of weight, and I was trying to figure out how to live in this new body. And in that journey, I started with yoga, and very early on, I had met Mike and Galena Tamburo of Crown of Eternity, and started doing sound therapy sessions with them.
And they do the singing bowls and the gongs, and it's
Correct,
really amazing
correct.
stuff.
So, in fact, most of what I do is very similar to what they did back in those early days. That what really had a lot of impact on me. So, they would place the bowls on my body, and then they would play them, and then they would play the gongs around me, and um, it's amazing just that the power that had to really shift me from one state of being to the other. Because I had lost weight before and gained it back, but this was really it was a setting of a new life for me, and, it was really changing me kind of at a cellular level each session that they did with me, and I would walk away, just feeling so impactful. So I started studying with them originally, and then I started studying with some of their teachers as well. Uh, One of the major teachers that I had was Peter Hess from Germany. I'm now a trainer with the Peter Hess Academy, which is part of the Peter Hess Institute, and that is the training that I had with them is called sound massage, as a sound massage practitioner, and we use the bowls. It's kind of like a vibrational or sonic acupuncture. So we move the bowls around the body on those same spots, and let the vibration and the sound really activate those points in your meridian system and those energetic spots of the body in order to really just send you into a blissful place. So that was the beginning and the crux of my training. I've had a lot of training beyond that, but that's kind of the beginnings of it.
And, somebody who's no familiarity with anything like this might think, well, that just sounds crazy. Is there anything that you can tie it to? Uh, I don't want to say reality, but what more people think of as reality, that what's actually going on in the body when
Yeah,
this
yeah, for
sound
sure.
happens.
So there's two kind of things that happen. And the first I'll start with just the way sound affects the body on a cellular level. Um, so, a sound wave, um, and also when we use a gong, what we call a compression wave. So that's the wave that the sound makes in the air. So it actually displaces the air molecules. It travels one way in air, but it travels a different way in tissue,
Okay.
because our bodies are made of 70% water. So the way that sound travels in water is a little bit different than in the air, but in some ways very similar. The more dense the material that it travels through, kind of in a way, the more change it has on that material. If it can penetrate the material, than the air, because the air, what we have is we have coherent bonds between cells, and then even just at a molecular level. So that sound wave hits and say this is our normal state, and then after 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years, kind of our normal state kind of changes because of the stress that we're under
Away
and
from the original blueprint.
arraigned from the original blueprint. So what happens is that wave hits the structure, and then the first cell moves. That changes the coherent bond, which then shifts the other cell, and then it shifts back to normal. And whenever it shifts back, it shifts much more back to a much more normal state than kind of before, because our body
Hmm.
always wants to hit homeostasis,
Right.
especially in a relaxed state.
Right.
So if we're in a relaxed state and then we can just shift those cells around, and when you're thinking about during you're sitting and the singing, with a singing bowl on the body, and we're just continually just having those waves kind of move around in you, or you're in the egg, and that sound is just penetrating the body and all those cells at all those levels. It can bring it much more closer to a homeostasis, or what we were like, at the time of birth and
Yeah.
in our childhood, than what it was like before. So that's a physical, what it's doing. But then there's also there's this wonderful book called Mind Over Medicine, and it really explains what happens to us kind of on an energetic level, in the way that you know it's the doctor Lisa Rankin studied all these people that healed from diseases that were terminal. They were chronic. They were things that people just don't get better from. And so what she did was she studied all these people that actually got better. And she studied the placebo effect, and she studied a lot of these things that kind of, they're the things that science uses in their studies to kind of prove that this drug does this.
Right.
But what happens when the sugar pill's doing that too?
Right.
Right? Right?
Just never a question doctors want to answer.
Right, right. So she decided to start looking into that a little bit more. And she identified kind of 6 key things that we need as human beings in order to heal ourselves, um, or what those 6 things that each of those people were that got better, that were supposed to never get better. And, one is belief. They just had to believe that they were gonna get better, and then they needed support. Um, and that support component, coupled with the belief component, is really what these modalities are offering. You get to come in here, you have a practitioner that really wants to see you get better, and they believe that you can get better as well. Your practitioner has to have as much belief as you do in order for you actually to get better. Um, and then, we're here to support you. We help you kind of identify what your intentions are. Um, and then we put you in this, either in the egg, or we do a sound session with singing bowls with you, or gong. And so that's an hour of you really in this deep meditative state, focusing on that intention to get better. So, not only are we addressing that physical change within the body and kind of a realignment, but we're also looking at, what are your belief systems and how can we support that? How can we, you know, help tailor a placebo effect to you so that we're giving you the support and giving you the things that you need. And then, enhancing that with meditation, with acoustic induced meditation. So, we're using the sound, we're using the vibration to really send you to that place that normally we can't get to, especially in this culture.
Yeah, you described it to me once as something that monks train for years and years and years to get to that state. And here you sit inside the egg, and there you are in that state.
Right, right. And that's and we can maybe touch a little bit more on this when we get to the actual mold stuff. But she Dr. Lissa Rankin studied, or looked at the studies of the doctors that studied monks. And there's monks, um, that they go out in these freezing temperatures and they
Right.
take these robes that are wool and they're wet and they put these wet robes on them and they go outside in this freezing cold temperature and they sit there and they meditate and they allow their bodies to dry these wool robes off and they never suffer hypothermia, their body temperature never drops, so it's that power of mind over the body that just illustrates. So we're allowing you to get to those same mental states, just with your particular intention in mind.
Hmm. That's fascinating. So I could follow this thread all day. I love talking about this kind of stuff. But let's get to the egg itself.
Hmm.
Describe the egg that's here behind us, and who developed it, and how did she develop it?
Yeah. So um, Gail Lynn is the inventor of the egg. She was um, uh, linked to this other thing called the life vessel for a long time, which is it's a similar modality. The difference is it's more coffin like.
Okay, I like the egg better.
Unlike that, right, right. Um, but so what she did is she used the idea of the sound therapy along with the light therapy and kind of did a little more research than the inventor of the life vessel to find out, how she can enhance those experiences. Um, and then she also used her engineering background as well as Tesla's mathematics, to come up with the shape and just how the egg works. The egg is an egg shape,
Definitely is.
right? So it has that womb kind of feeling in it. Also, the outside layer and inside layer is separated by a hollow cavity. So the outside, it's wood. The egg is made out of wood. The inside skin of the egg, the wood is the same wood that we use in guitar bodies.
Oh, interesting.
So when the music is playing, that wood, that cavity is actually creating the same atmosphere as being inside of a guitar while it's being strummed. So we're getting, even though it's, the egg uses an iPod to send the signal, and we're using an old-fashioned amp. We're trying to get as close to an acoustic signal as we can. And the speakers, the shape of the egg, the way that the panels are built and moving that sound around you, and the way that the egg actually becomes the instrument itself, really creates that acoustic response.
Huh. That's really interesting. Talk about like the main purpose about the how it builds that body brain entrainment.
Yeah, so well, I could go on about this all day too. So I'm gonna try to kind of make it as simple as possible. Um, the Japanese have done some research on meditation, and what their research shows us, and a lot of this research was particularly about forced bathing, but the research holds true with all deep meditative experiences or healing experiences when it comes to these kind of modalities. Um, we go through life and we're here, right? What happens is we do one of these meditations, say forest bathing or an egg session, and we'll say that this is our norm. And what happens is our immune system boosts by 40%. Our blood pressure levels out, our cortisol levels drop, and this is all scientifically proven
Sure.
by the Japanese. And so what happens is we come to this elevated state. So we're here, we're at an elevated state. That elevated state really lasts for 5 to 7 days. And then it starts to come down. Our bodies start to come down from that elevated state. That kind of coming down from that, we have some effects that we see last for up to a month. But really, so we're there. So we have our session, we're here, we're, at this elevated state. Now, if we start coming, 5 to 10 times, and we're at our 5 to 7 days and we start to droop down. Now all of a sudden we have another session that brings us back up. We start to come down and it'll bring us back up. Now all of a sudden we're entrained to be at this new state.
So that becomes our new normal.
That becomes our new normal, and our body prefers that state because that's much closer to what it was meant to run at anyway. So that's the entrainment part. So we're really teaching the body that we want it to run at this optimal level, not what we were used to because of all the stressors that we live in every day. Um, we're when you think about the way we were 200, 300 centuries ago, the way that we've kind of adapted over the years. Um, we were in a family unit. We would do hunting and gathering. The only time we really had major fear responses was when, the lion was in front of us ready to eat us, right? The rest of the time we were, there might have been some fear around food and saying, sustenance, but for the most part, that flight and fight response wasn't activated on a constant basis. Um, our lizard brain doesn't understand the difference between I'm driving a car and that person hit their brakes in front of us to, someone's going to murder us with a knife. It's the same. So we're having that same physical response over and over again throughout the day, or we're watching it on TV and our lizard brain just doesn't know the difference. So what we're doing is, we're in that constant state of flight and fight. What we want to do is start introducing that rest and digest.
Yeah.
And that's what this is. It puts us into that meditative state.
And I think that's such an important point, though, is that getting out of that fight or flight, because face it, most people in the Western world are in that state all the time, all day long at work, come home, kids, family, paying bills,
They fall asleep to the TV being on.
watching war movies and
Right.
CSIs and all that kind of stuff. And it's that deep meditative state. It's when you get into the rest and relax or rest and digest, that's when the body's own healing mechanisms can work. It just doesn't work when you're in constant fear.
Correct.
Yeah, and that's especially important when we start talking about the mold too. So before we get into that, just a couple of things that are really interesting about the whole thing you have set up here. When you get done with a session, Michaela gives you a glass of electrolytes in water. What's the purpose of that?
So again, we've changed our state
Yeah.
from that flight and fight to a rest and digest. And especially if you're not accustomed to being in that state, there's some things that start to happen. One is that our body begins to detox. We start to clean ourselves out. And in doing so, we flush a lot of the good along with the bad out of our body. So the electrolyte is really to help encourage people to stay hydrated, so their body can continue to flush. We know by those Japanese studies that our body stays in that enhanced state for that 5 to 7 days. So we really want people to be able to replenish anything that it might be, washing out of it. So the
Okay.
electrolytes really help with that. There's the electrolytes that we give you are 100% natural. Most of the products are either wild crafted or wild harvested or organic. And it has as many minerals in as a serving of spinach.
Oh, great.
So, it has some vitamin C in as well, but it's really those replacing those mineral components.
Yeah. Because I have noticed when you get done with the session, it's like, must urinate soon, as soon as you get
Right,
out of bed.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Also here in the Pittsburgh space, you've done a few things which are a little different than some of the other spaces. Can you kind of describe what you got going on here?
So here in the space we have the egg, obviously, and there's a lot of other spaces that do, but we offer some other sound modalities as well. We do have uh, the Gong resonance therapy.
With the wall of gongs that you see when you come in the door.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. And that we can do with groups or individuals.
Okay.
Um,
Just all these plants with some special lights on them.
yeah, so the plants are interesting. I have a background in horticulture as well.
Okay.
And a few years ago, right after the NASA study came out, I started developing and designing what we call breathing rooms. And so that's essentially what the plants are doing here. The plants here are on the NASA list for the top 50 air purifiers. These plants, one of these plants can do about the same as 9 air purifiers in a
Oh, neat.
year for its specific toxin. So each plant, does a better job at particular toxins. For instance, ivy, you should have ivy in your bathroom always because it actually removes fecal matter out of the air.
Now, what's IV?
Ivy,
Oh, Ivy.
IVY, yeah, like
Like IV the plant. I thought you meant like intravenous or
yeah,
something.
no, just the
Okay.
plant. Have it in your bathroom
Yeah.
because it
Interesting.
removes 70% of fecal matter out of the air in 1 hour. So
Okay.
you flush that toilet, the ivy
Yeah,
takes care of it.
I know how it works.
So, different plants are for formaldehydes, for glues, for all kinds of different VOCs.
Okay. Yeah, because we're in a building that's probably 140 years old. Great
Exactly.
post-industrial red brick and
Exactly.
yeah.
So we want to use the natural, but we also do have the air purifier here as well. This air purifier is pretty unique. It's medical grade. It has both the HEPA filter, a carbon filter, a UV light filter, so it kills viruses as well, and then an ion. It uses ionic filtration as
Okay.
well. So
It's the real deal.
it's covering all of those bases.
Okay. And you advise people when they're doing the sessions or when they're in a series of sessions that they should not go get a massage or get any other kind of energy work because that might interfere
Yeah.
with the now describe why and how that's important.
So it's true that when we want to heal, when we're in a state where we're searching for an answer to something in our lives, um, we do have the tendency to do what we call, some people call it spiritual entertainment. Other people refer to people as spiritual junkies. And so what people will do is they'll have a Reiki session, then they'll go sound session, and then they'll get massage therapy and they pile all these things in the same day or the same week.
Right.
Um,
Oh, done there, been that. Yeah.
okay, right. So what that does is now we just learn that when we're in a state, we keep that state for 5 to 7 days. If we keep layering one thing on top of another and not allowing one of those things to really integrate and to allow it to you know do what it was intended to do to enhance that intention, um, we just disrupt that process. So it's also when you come out of the egg or you come out of a sound massage session, you're open, you're vulnerable. Now you go to someone who does Reiki, and practitioners are amazing. The problem though is, sometimes we have a bad day.
Yeah.
So you have a practitioner who's going through something and they sit there and they're running that energy through you. Their energy is coming off of them as well. So at that heightened vulnerable state, is it really helping you? Um, the one other reason why we do recommend waiting, especially with massage, is you come out of the egg, you're detoxing, you need to go to the bathroom. So if you come out of the egg and you want to, and then you go get a massage, you're going to detox even more.
Right.
Or do the sauna right afterwards. You're really, and we want to avoid people having too much or
It's real easy to do, actually.
it is, and
Yeah.
you probably heard of what they call a healing crisis. What we do is designed to not have that happen.
Yeah.
We want it to be gentle and repetitive. Come in once a week for 10 weeks, and this is
Yeah.
the protocol, and
Yeah.
so that your body can get adjusted to that and really see, instead of one big shot. And I mean, you know, I had a business partner once that had a healing, and she ended up in the hospital for 2 weeks with blood pressure. Now, she got out of the hospital, her blood pressure went down to normal. She never had to take blood pressure medicine again. But, if we can get you there without spending 2 weeks in the hospital, that would be
That would
ideal.
be better.
Right, right, right.
Um, I promise we are gonna talk about mold here. We'll get to that. But what are some of the other kinds of conditions that the egg has been shown to be effective to help treat?
Yeah, I mean, we really have seen it all. When we use the kind of the Ayurvedic or energetic model from Eastern medicine. And what we're doing is we're really helping support a person. When we look at an individual, we believe that there's a physical body, an emotional body, and a spiritual body. And I can't see the spiritual body, but the emotional body and the physical body can tell me a little bit about the spiritual body. And so what I do is I look at, what symptoms do you have? What's going on with you? And then how can we energetically support your spiritual body or your energetic body? Um, how, for instance, someone with lower back pain and hip pain, someone they'll be so this happens to me every week. Someone will come to me and they have rashes, and then they have the lower back pain, and or they might have some teeth issues, and then they start talking about their emotional pains, and their mother just died, or there was some kind of physical abuse that happened by their father or something. All of that is root issue. That's the root chakra.
Mm,
So when we look at that, then I say, okay, well, that's the energy center that we want to try to nourish. That's
okay,
where, so not only is it, do we pick music to help nourish that, or do we pick light colors that will help nourish that? But, there's also homework. You know, Go home and try this, see if this really helps with whatever
sure,
that particular issue is. Especially when someone who's coming with mold toxicity, they have there's a thing that they're looking at, and we're really looking at detoxing and getting someone back into that homeostasis. But some other issues, go a little deeper.
right.
So we're looking at, what can they do
And
to
mold can
address
cause
that?
so many other things as well, so it really is a holistic approach makes a whole lot more sense.
It is. It is. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about the eggs themselves. Your team is about 4 or 5 locations, 3 or 4
Yeah, we're
locations?
now at 5.
Okay,
Yep, we're possibly gonna have 7.
that's great.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
that's
kind of exciting.
mostly in, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan,
No,
Wisconsin?
no,
No.
we had a center opening in Bend, Oregon.
Oh, great.
She got her egg today,
Oh,
actually.
great.
So we're starting. So there's 2 different entities. There's the Harmonic Egg, www.harmonicegg.com, and that's Gail, the inventor, and
Okay,
she's creating the eggs. Then there's Harmonic Egg Wellness, which is us, and what we are is we're a group, a smaller group of owners that come together kind of as a co-op in order to support each other
oh,
with the
okay.
marketing and all those other
A
things.
little more
So
holistic approach with all the other things we've been talking about.
yeah,
How
yeah.
many eggs are out there around the country?
So worldwide at this point, we're at about 50.
Okay,
Um, uh, however, that change every 2 weeks, a new egg's being installed.
okay, great.
Um,
And these are really popular. I mean, you
yeah,
guys are
they're
pretty
sold
busy.
out for like 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah, and they can only make 1 egg every 2 weeks.
Right.
So that's their yeah, they're
That's
it's
that's
growing
wild.
pretty
That's
quickly.
really amazing. So let's talk about the mold. Kind of what I wanted to do is just kind of talk about the theory and what you do with each of the sessions, and then I'll get into some of the specific things that I've noticed, from me doing the 10 sessions. So you've laid a very good foundation for our understanding of the light and sound. How does that heal mold?
Sure. So the first thing, I'll just talk about the protocol a little bit.
Sure.
So the first thing that we're looking at is what we call an autonomic nervous system reset.
Yeah.
And so when we're talking about that's the part of the nervous system that runs everything that we're not doing consciously.
Right.
So it's our heartbeat, it's our blood pressure, it's all of those things that just happen naturally within us. Um, and
And
it
the detoxing process
and
too.
the detoxing process. The autonomic nervous system runs at peak performance when it's at rest and digest. Because whenever we're in the of the flight or fight, then our our other system takes, and that's our digestion stops because we need adrenaline in order to fight off whatever this is or to run away from whatever it
Right.
is. So we need the energies, is to support that instead of the rest and digest. So the first thing we want to do is kind of reset that. And we talked about cellular, how we're doing that. And then also just as far as, a mental state, um, finding that and often whenever you put someone in the egg, it's the first time that they've ever hit that deep meditative state. So, they might have tried to meditate before. Most people tell me that they've never been able to meditate.
Can't turn their mind off.
Exactly. And so, they're experiencing that for the first time, and that's what we call the reset.
Yeah, that's a big reset there.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And it's interesting. The people who come to me that have a regular meditation practice, they get in the egg for the first time and they're a little underwhelmed.
I can see that.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
can see that.
They come
You're
2,
like,
3,
okay,
4
well,
times, and then
yeah.
they start really seeing the difference
Right,
happen in their
right, right,
body.
right,
But they
right.
come the first time and they're a little.
Yeah.
The people who have never meditated a day in their life and get in their egg, their minds are blown.
Yeah,
They're like, so it's you can really see that shift.
that's interesting.
And it's a subtle energy. That's why
That's one of the things we're gonna talk about. It's very subtle, but it's
yeah,
very deep. I mean, it does feel like things change at a cellular level.
right.
And the thing I noticed too with especially, well, not so much with well, yeah, probably with the first session is that it really reduces that panic and anxiety. And that's like I said, it's so important for people who are in a moldy situation because you're afraid of everything. You're afraid of the house you live in, your clothes, your financial situation is usually deteriorating. Your relationships turn toxic because nobody wants to talk about mold. They're tired of listening to you about mold. Blah, blah, blah. So there's a lot of and just the mold itself, I found, creates anxiety. So really getting that chance at first session just to reset the autonomic nervous system, that's a big deal. That's a
It
big
is.
deal.
It is. And we find that every session we do does that to some level, but
Mhm.
the first session and the last session,
Yeah.
we really want, that to happen
Yeah,
in
yeah,
a bigger way. So the music and the lights that we use really support that.
yeah.
Um,
And talk about the rest of the sessions and the
yeah.
2 through 9, what happens in those
Yeah,
sessions?
so it's really the number 2, we really set you up your digestive system.
Because that's helping to flush everything out.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. So we're really looking at that solar plexus energy and the sacral energy. So we're really supporting those 2 energy centers so that it can help with the digestion.
Mm.
Um, uh, and some root in there. From there, we go into what we call a liver detox.
Mhm.
Um, and the music for that and the light colors are really just help stimulate energetically so that we can start to do, kind of address some of those what we call in Chinese medicine liver issues. So I'm not doing anything physically to your liver. I'm just looking at the energy centers that in Chinese medicine govern the liver.
Sure.
So I'm not treating anything, but
Right.
we're looking at those energy centers and trying to help support them. So we jump between digestion and detoxification and
Hmm.
liver, and kind of jump between those 3 things from session to session. Um, in a laid out way. Gail has given us the protocol for that. Um, and it works really well just to get the body reset and fleshed out.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Mm-hmm.
again, we're here. So at this peak
Right.
place so that our bodies can kind of deal with the thing. When we look at mold too, when we look at any allergies or reactions that we're having to something, we have this cup. And what happens is through our life, we get more and more things get filled in this cup. We'll take molds, or we'll say have our mold cup.
Right.
Now all of a sudden, when we're introduced into an environment where we're bombarded with it at a toxic level, that mold cup is full and
Yeah.
it can't take anymore. So whenever
Right.
we get a little bit more, then we get sick.
Yeah.
And then we have the reactions that we have. So, what we are doing energetically is we're taking that cup and we're saying, let's help your body try to dump some of that out so that you can handle a little bit more, or maybe mentally, um, uh, and energetically, we can make that cup a little bit bigger so that you
That's
can
what I was going to
hold a
say. It
little bit
feels like the cup
more.
gets a little bigger.
Right.
What I've heard it described as the toxic load theory. And once you've hit your load, that your body can handle, then everything becomes toxic. And well, let's get into that a little bit, because I want to talk about, some of the things that I've experienced having done the 10 sessions now. And one of the most interesting, and one I actually had not planned on, was very effortlessly, no stress, no headaches, just gave up coffee. I've been drinking coffee for 40 years since I was in the Navy, right? And all of a sudden, I'm not drinking coffee. And I'm like, well, why did I want to do that? And then I remembered that coffee is one of the highest levels of mold in the food itself, even organic coffee, because it's still shipped in containers that have mold. And all of a sudden, I'm not putting that mold and coffee into my body anymore. First thing happened, my adrenals got a lot happier. Like, I just didn't feel that level of stress. And I was only drinking like 1 cup a day. It wasn't like I drank a lot of coffee, but just even 1 cup a day. And I was doing they call it the bulletproof coffee, right? With the grass-fed butter and the MCT, the chain triglycerides. And I was still like, wow, it just effortlessly. And I think was part of the body's wisdom. Like, I've really learned to listen to my body's wisdom. And even without any conscious thought or without any mental directness, just said, oh, let's just give that up.
Yeah.
And there was nothing to it. Do you have any explanation here? You got to
Yeah,
give me some feedback on that.
a lot. Yeah, a lot. Because I see it happen all the time.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. So it really, our sessions help in two ways. First of all, we get you to ask the question, right? What is it that your body needs? What does your body not want? And that's part of kind of not diagnosing the disease, but diagnosing what it is that's making you sick on an energetic way, and that's you're diagnosing that on your own. You're telling us by asking those questions. Then you get in the egg and you get to meditate about those questions for an hour, right? So the answers start coming to us.
Yeah.
What is it that we need? And then from there, you start making some changes like you did,
Yeah.
with the egg. But you come back on a weekly basis and you get back into the egg, and that supports and helps give you that extra oomph that you need in order to make these lifestyle changes. I mean, I've seen people just completely, they come in, they're depressed and they hate their jobs and they're,
Right.
overweight. And, after 10 sessions, they're new people, they're starting to lose weight. They're happy. They never thought that they were going anywhere in their job. And now all of a sudden they applied for the management position or something. And now they have this new job within their organization. And it's beautiful. And it's that asking the right questions. It's a setting of the intention and having that intention supported with meditation.
Yeah.
And this is allowing you to enter it, whether it's the egg or the gongs or the singing bowls. It's really helping
Sure.
support that intention so that life's changes can happen.
Yeah, yeah. The other thing I noticed was that I've been doing a lot of really deep energy work for many years, but especially after I had a mold-induced heart attack 6 years ago. And, I panic attacks, anxiety, depression, not so much the panic attacks, but anxiety and depression have been with through my whole life. But I've been poisoned by mold my whole life too. But all these sessions, I've learned that when I feel a negative emotion, it's not me. It's just an emotion, and I'm sharing that emotion with the emotion itself, but it's not really me. But it seems like doing these 10 sessions, now I'm at a place where a negative emotion starts to come on, and I just ignore it, and it just goes away. It's not suppression, it's not denial. It's just like, it's not me. Let it go. And I actually had a session where that really deeply fundamentally came to me during the session. It's
Yeah.
like, I don't have to feel these anymore. I could just let them go. They're not forced on me. And
Right.
it's just like, see you
Yeah.
later. Yeah.
You know, feelings are not facts.
Right.
So whenever you know, we do have a choice. We're gonna feel when the emotion props up. This is something that I was told as a kid many times, and it was used for all kinds of things, but it really does work for emotions. The saying was that you can't stop a bird from flying over your head, but you can stop it from making a nest in your hair. And that's so true when it comes to emotions. We can't stop something from feeling from us ourselves from starting to feel something, but we can
Yeah.
decide on what we do with it.
We're gonna let it sit in
Yeah,
our hair.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
That's interesting. Well, I think I've made that turn. My sweetie says that over the last few weeks that she's noticed that since I've known her, she says I'm more comfortable with me, with
Mhm.
being me, and I think it goes along with letting go of the negative emotions. I'm happier with myself and my life than I feel like I've ever been. I really have a deep, deep sense of calm, and I just don't get triggered by things anymore. I don't get panicky about things.
So one thing that's a little different about what we do here compared to if you go and have a Reiki session or you you're working with some other energetic healer or even massage, you go to that person and the idea is that that person's channeling universal energy or that person's working on your body and there's an energy exchange that's happening between the person and you and
Right.
ideally they're it's coming from source through them.
Ideally. Yes.
Ideally,
I get
right?
that very much, yeah.
Um, all I'm doing is creating an atmosphere for you to connect to source on your own. I'm not involved in that.
Yeah.
I'm putting you in an egg that's inducing that meditation that will help give you some of that energetic support. But, in your meditation, they say that that's meditation, prayers when we talk to our higher power, meditations when we listen.
Exactly.
And this is just, it's just facilitating your
The
connection.
listening part.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So,
Yeah.
that's magic happens.
Yeah. Well, I think we talked on this topic, this point a little bit too, is that it feels like, I can't say that my body physically is able to handle mold better. It's like you talked about with the cup. It feels like my cup is bigger now. The things that were the initial signs of mold, like the sniffiness and the eye itching, um, those are the triggers when I know I've been toxed, and not so much, the deeper ones that I used to have, which would be like light sensitivity or my visual acuity would decrease. So it seems like I'm better able, I have more resilience around being able to deal with mold. That you're nodding a lot. That's
Yeah,
pretty
yeah.
good.
It makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
In that book, Mind Over Medicine, she talks about a man who's diagnosed with cancer, and he's given 6 months to live, and in 6 months he dies, and they do an autopsy. He has no cancer.
No cancer. Ah,
So, and then the opposite is true, where,
sure.
someone's diagnosed with something and they believe that they can get better, and they do, and it goes away, right? There's miraculous. Um, so, you know, I do believe that with the proper tools, anybody can start to change the way their body's responding to things.
Yeah.
We hit that. Now what do we need to do in order to change our response, to become elevated above and beyond that? And that's what it's all
But
about.
it's such a deep level. It's barely even conscious a lot of the times.
No, yeah.
Um, I mean, sound and light, if you tell somebody, "Oh, we're gonna put you in a chamber," and you get lights and you listen to sound, and it's like you say, people are gonna be, like, underwhelmed with that idea. But those are such subtle and powerful and profound changes that are made, and hopefully permanent
Yeah.
changes. Um, that's really, I'm even me with 30 years of doing this kind of stuff. I was amazed. I really was amazed.
Yeah, and again, the yes, there's subtle energies. We know that they give us the support that we need though.
Yeah,
And we're opening your connection to source.
yeah, yeah.
So that, magic happens in that state that just doesn't happen otherwise.
I think you're onto something here.
Yeah.
Well, we've covered a lot of territory here. Probably went a little bit longer. How we doing, Tyler, on time?
52 minutes.
Oh,
We
yeah.
had, I mean, we had like 8 minutes there in the beginning, so you
Okay.
probably now I'm just hitting like 45. I was gonna give you a 5.
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah.
Wrap
So
whenever.
we've covered a lot of territory. Any last thoughts or points that you want to talk about or say about a little more detail or things that are happening?
Yeah, sure. So
I
here,
didn't think you would have any trouble coming up with more to talk about.
right, right, right. So here at the center, we have the egg, we have the other sound therapies as well. We are going to be expanding in December to having a lot of other things
You're
here.
gonna move down a floor,
We're
so
going to
you'll be
move
right
down
on
a
the street.
floor.
Yeah.
We're introducing something that's actually going to be really good for mold. We are getting salt sauna booths.
That's
So,
cool.
and we actually will have one up here in a month. And what's really cool, this is kind of fun. The booth that we're getting here in at least one of our booths downstairs will be equipped with an exercise bike.
Oh, wow.
So 20 minutes of, exercising on the bike while breathing in
While
so that it
breathing.
even goes deeper. So
Wow.
that the Himalayan salt actually goes much deeper into the system and really clears out our lungs and clears out our system with that heat. And they're seeing some really amazing benefits from that.
That's
So
fantastic.
so we're excited to be getting that
Yeah, I
here
can't
too.
wait for that. That's gonna be,
Yeah,
that sounds really good.
yeah, yeah.
Well, Wyatt Melius, it's been a real pleasure. I always enjoy talking with you when I come up here. Here we are with the Harmonic Egg and so much more that you've got going on. So that should do it for this podcast. I want to thank Tyler and Amber, who do such a great job with the engineering and running into crazy problems that start out. And I guess we could hear some music occasionally. We thought it was the yoga studio. We might be picking up a radio antenna. It might be picked up by the egg or something. Who
It's
knows?
all
But
Tyler.
it's all Tyler. It's all Tyler's fault. So that'll do it for this edition. Stay healthy, stay well, stay alive. We'll see you again next time. Thanks.